Woe is to the noble pig. Highly social and intelligent animals that are lauded in some part of the world as cute pets, more likely to become the source of weekend barbecues. They have been domesticated since days tracing back to the Han Dynasty and should indeed be treated as something more than the password for elected officials who seek to swindle and cheat American voters, for the pig would never seek to cheat or steal. However, their sometimes gluttonous ways have led the pig to be used in describing the bloated pork that spews forth from Washington, D.C. and other homes of elected officials, leading us to the Congressional Pig Book and that dastardly federal government waste. Let us then just belly up to the trough, expose the latest insult to the pig. Welcome back to the Vice President for Policy and Communications at Citizens Against Government Waste, Leslie Paige. Oh, Leslie, here we are again, the poor pig. But I mean, let's just go ahead and move forward here, because every time you and I talk, we talk about waste. Now it's the Pig Book that is out.
Correct.
This is absolutely shocking. How does this really rank it? All the other things that we've talked about here, we keep talking about waste. I mean, this has got to be the absolute ultimate here when you look at the earmark spending that's on the rise. And how often do we talk about the fact that we should always be attacking the earmarks and getting rid of them?
Well, absolutely. We'd love to get rid of them. And in fact, Congress in itself decided 5 years ago to get rid of them. They didn't. They claim that they've instituted an earmark moratorium. But the fact of the matter is ever since they started it, they knew it was bad. They were forced into it. I think they were sort of basically shamed into it eventually, because it got so bad in 2006 that it was $29 billion. Now, this is a small amount of money vis-a-vis the whole overall budget. But keep in mind, this is sort of unaccountable money. That's part of the problem. It's lacks transparency. It's very difficult to track it. It sort of runs alongside the budget process. It's just added in sort of not very on the up and up ways, and so basically you end up getting this very, very escalating problem of unaccountable money. They were shamed into a moratorium in 2010, but even since then, we have seen that they are still creating these bigger earmarks. Okay, so keep in mind that they started almost immediately to creep back into the budget. We'd find them. But the average earmark back in 2010 after the moratorium was about $1.1 million. Now, the average cost of an earmark is $36 million. So what's happening is there are a few earmarks, but they're bloating up.
Hold on a second. I'm going to stop you there, because let's make sure everybody understands this here. The 2010 average was $1.1 million. In this report, the 2016 average $36.6 million. It's astounding when you think of that kind of money. $35 million on the average here. So is there any one organization, group, individual, a person who needs to be basically put on a spit and barbecue that's at fault for this?
Well, Congress itself is at fault, but let me just say that earmarks have become even less transparent than they were. The moratorium had upsides and downsides. The upside was Congress got to go out to the American people and to taxpayers and say, look, we're not porking up these budgets anymore. It was an embarrassment. People ended up going to jail in connection with earmarking back in the 2000s and in the 90s. And basically, they decided they better stop because it was embarrassing and it was causing them some heartburn. And it should have, because it was basically them just self-dealing to cronies, to programs they wanted that didn't get funded in the budget, that kind of thing. Well, but the problem is now it's creeping back in. So they still want to be able to go out and say, we're not earmarking, but in fact, we are still finding that they're plussing up and increasing the money for earmarks from before. There were hundreds of earmarks before. And so what they've done is now they're basically creating these bigger slush funds of money. Not too much information associated with those big slush funds. Like, you can't determine who put it in there. And basically, it's a slush fund that gets determined and distributed later when it gets up to the agency level. But no one's taking credit for it, and they can still, they're still funding projects that they want.
Well, let's look at
and
this.
It's sort of an unaccountable stream of money.
With regard to projects, I got 60 seconds left. A lot of the items are in the Department of Defense. Here's one.
Correct.
$20 million earmark for alternative energy research. Is it just possible that maybe when the earmarks are made, they come with the best of intentions? Because it seems like the DOD might not be a bad individual to go ahead and look at this and do the research, but they just go overboard and never really get down to what they're supposed to be doing.
You know, back in 1991 when we started the Pig Book, one of the reasons we did it was to get around this one man's pork is another person's constituent services argument that they tend to use. The problem with all this is that this is a procedural aberration. All of this stuff sounds great when they tell you what it's about. It's always something really meritorious. Our argument was, well, if it is meritorious, let's let it go through the budget process like everything else. Let's competitively award it. Let's be sure that it's bid out. Let's have hearings on it, on the up and up so everyone can hear about it. Let's make sure it's authorized, appropriated. Let's make sure the agency budgets want it, that whoever's running the executive branch actually includes it in their budget. I mean, there is a process here for a reason. These all go outside the process.
And that's exactly what it is.
They can claim all they want that it's meritorious, but you'll never know that because they never put it through the process.
You're hitting on that process, and that's exactly the point to start. People who watch us, start here. Go to CAGW.org, learn about the Pig Book, and learn about those people who need to be held accountable every day. Leslie Paige, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate your time. And by the way, everybody, do not head for the barbecue. Hardline continues.